Hi, this is Rachel. I'm an intern with the Climate Mental Health Network, and I have the privilege to be with my mom, Valerie, who is art teacher and humanities coordinator with over 30 years of experience. And we're going to have a short conversation about how art is an amazing practice and tool for engaging with the environment, with processing climate emotions, with kind of cultivating ecological consciousness, if you will. So I'm going to pass it over to you. If you could just talk briefly about the way that environment has played into your art practice.
Well, I mean, I think firstly, it's the materials themselves. The materials I gravitate towards, and the ones particularly young children respond to, are materials that come directly from the earth. Clay, we work a lot with plant materials, creating dyes. Printmaking, again, where we're often going on nature walks and finding objects for our printmaking or observational work. So glass, I mean, it goes on, textiles and the properties and where they come from. So I think just starting with the very materials that you're working with and understanding where they come from and that there's limited supplies. And understanding the different environments that provide these resources or materials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And in what ways has kind of art, also sparked your own kind of climate and environmental awareness? And
wow, I mean, it goes back to my childhood. Like, there hasn't been a time in my life when art and the natural world haven't intersected. I grew up in an area with the woods in my immediate environment, so everything I found out there, everything that I was drawn to, obviously was a product of the natural world and my relationship within it. And that's just something I've carried through in teaching art. I love, a background I have is in art history and focusing on indigenous arts, particularly the arts of the Southwest and Pueblonian people. And that strong connection to land, material, and art, if you will, or rather than art, I almost like to just say expression, or sort of a source for creativity and healing.
Yeah, I think you've really taught me, like, art is, the sun rays are illuminating us.
Yeah.
That art is so much more beyond just, for example, pencil to paper, paint to paper.
Yeah.
It's a relationship with the world around you.
Yeah, I think I feel most excited when a student, and particularly a young student, comes to me after a weekend with a leaf or a twig that they find. And it's something so magical, and they're seeing it in a way perhaps they haven't seen it before. And they'll tell me, oh my goodness, have you noticed all the colors? Or turn it around and notice the vein, and then we have a discussion on the veins in the leaf are similar to the veins in our own body and the roots of a tree, and just having those opportunities, but having children see the world and notice it a little bit more with more intention.
And it could be, art is such a portal for therapeutic practice.
Absolutely.
And processing our emotions, particularly at this moment,
often,
with climate.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Often children will tell me when they leave, or you'll hear it in the silence of the art room at times. And often students will say things like, oh, I was feeling so, we use a lot of color mood meter. They might give me a color that they were feeling when they came into the art room and a color that they're leaving the art room with, which is often something that describes a soothing, safer, calmer color for their being at that time. But even processing events in our world, the art becomes a place and a tool where they can process those emotions and have some agency over it in a way. So that's also helpful.
And I see you have some books here.
I have some books. I have lots of books, but I'm really particular about curating books in an art space as well that kind of lead to a larger idea. But I think it's really important, especially with young children, again, to start with things like, what is the material? If I'm working with clay, understanding what clay is. This is just one book to give an idea. This is a book published by the Santa Acoma Pueblo, and it's just about how clay sings and the minerals and properties and how generations have used clay. It might be just some kind of beautiful turn of the century botanist renderings on natural objects as a point of inspiration. Something like the busy tree that might just explain all the workings of a tree and the home and a place of belonging it is for so many creatures and elements that we use. Understanding too time shifting in our environment, our bigger environment. So I often will have the children notice and acknowledge the different solstices and equinox as the seasons change, and understanding the relationship between that and our growing world.
And I'll put the books in the description
I could go on and
below.
on, but one last I'll show you is just something too, like We Are the Water Protectors, always trying to insert a sense of stewardship. And I think that comes naturally when children start having, or any of us start having, a relationship and a love for our environment. We want to take care of it naturally.
Yeah, and I know for me, this is something you've taught me, like art is such a way to form that relationship and connection and awareness, because it's so much about observing your place and just having, and then in observing your place, you also are developing a sense of self and identity.
Absolutely.
And so I know we have set up an example of kind of an art activity that can be used, I think for all ages, really.
All ages, and of course any activity can be expanded and then integrated into any other form you may want to explore. And this is something I start with very young children. Rachel's really brought to my attention the idea of environment, which is something we tend to think of out there. So I started really rethinking my curriculum, and with young children I start with the idea of noticing your immediate environment, like all those things that make up environment. What is environment? And it can also be, right, an urban setting. We often think of this kind of pastoral. So we start by shadow mapping our immediate environment, and all you need is paper or a piece of old cardboard. And
should we go on?
Anything. Yeah.
Go on over. We have it set up under a beautiful lemon tree, or in our
beautiful lemon tree
backyard in Los Angeles right now.
So here's just a piece of paper, actually recycled paper. And I just found some pens, but again, you could use crayons, markers, anything you like. And I have the children literally just start to trace the shadows. It doesn't have to be, completely in a line with the shadow. It can be freer. It's also really good, right, for a young child's dexterity and small motor control. It becomes very meditative. I'm doing this quickly, but I would have the children look and really notice the objects that they're tracing and the kind of shadows they're creating. And I would have the children think about the time of the day as well, and the sun's intensity or lack of intensity depending on the weather, the time of day. And sometimes we leave our shadow mapping outside and come and look at it at a different time of day to see exactly the changes and what occurs. So I might have children too, after they've created a shadow map, research, what it is that they traced. Or, I've done this as well with students on a field trip in the city, and, there's incredible shadows that arise in that environment as well. It could be indoors, as long as you have light that creates a shadow. So I might just stop with that. I don't know if you could see it.
Yeah. And then you start seeing so many different things in the...
Exactly. There's so many places you can go with this. This could become a story. You can, you know, transfer this, and as Rachel suggested, there's so many beautiful things you can start to see. You can overlap different shadows,
yeah,
which is beautiful,
interesting.
with different colors. You can create a poem. I mean, it goes on and on. You can find a piece of poetry that inspires or alludes to this particular shadow. You might I don't know, right now it comes to my mind as an ode to a lemon tree, thinking the lemon tree for these beautiful shadows. And then I would, you know, do this over time, and we'd create a booklet, a sort of map of my environment through shadow, through shadow tracing.
Yeah. And it really helps you to slow down too.
Yeah, I was going a little faster, and then of course you could color in, you could paint inside the shadows, you could paint around the shadows, you could take a leaf and rub and get that, you know, dye from the leaf. It goes on and on. You can do prints after with the objects from your environment.
Yeah, this is just
It's
one
never-ending.
just one of so many examples of a practice that can help to ground us in place, to kind of open up our imagination, which is a tool we need to practice, a muscle we need to exercise.
Absolutely. One thing I often say too, that starts just about every lesson, whether we're looking at an artist piece of work, whether we're out on a nature walk, is what do you notice? Always, what do you notice? Starting with what it is you see and stopping and taking it in. And often too, we'll talk about our senses and how we're noticing through all these different senses as well. And then I will bring sometimes little paint samples that you could get for free at the hardware store or whatnot. And I might lay them out too and ask children to point to the colors they're feeling and then describe the colors that they're feeling within this different setting. It's particularly, again, helpful for young children who may have limited language.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's another beautiful language. Thank you so much. We'll end here for now, but this is just
I'm in shadow, so I'll come out.
one example of so many in the ways that art can be used to you know, cultivate an appreciation and awareness of place, and you know, form relationship. And thank you so much.
Oh, my
for
pleasure.
this.
I've loved this.
And
I'm going to continue tracing shadows.
thank you, Lemon Tree.
Thank you.